Ahoy hoy boys and girls, my name's Corey, aka Fourscore. Episode 10, I think we're nearing the end now. Just got maybe our mum, and then maybe a bit more about Milton, find out what the grand mystery is, or the grand curse, or whatever. But yeah, that last episode was really sad. I think it's because it was most relatable in the sense that it wasn't some, like, thing that could only happen in a cartoon. It was very like you could see he had mental illness, he was mentally ill, and you could see it like slowly deteriorating, and it was kind of grim because I was like controlling it, and it's like, nah, like, you can see where it's going. No one was stopping him, and no one was helping him. So rest in peace, Lewis. That was the saddest one, other than the baby, I think. But yeah, let's find out what happened to Milton. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. Hit subscribe. Let's do this. Right, bro. Full bedroom. Like what you done with the place. Loving the neon lights. Very Instagrammable. So this goes even higher because there was another set of stairs, wasn't there? The floatable raft.
On the way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing.
Yeah, it's time to go, I think.
She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie.
I don't want to say Edie's responsible, but once you've lost your kids and then lost grandkids, I think it's time to not invite grandkids to the house. I think we draw the line. I think we draw the line maybe even at the first person dying. I wouldn't want to live in a house where, like, unless it's like a natural death, like, oh, it's like your old nan or granddad. Sorry, I'm just chatting, but like, after the first two kids have gone, let's get out of here.
I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder.
They say it's a family curse, but just the house. Just get out of the house. You're locking rooms, there's so much memories. So is this our mum's room?
But I understand why we left.
Is it my room? Fully functional. It's got a kitchen. Saying, look, all these prints. We still don't know what happened to Milton, really. He just disappeared. Lamp. Oh god. I read that.
My mom ended up leaving everything behind.
So they said at the start that they left in a panic, like at the storm. So I'm guessing they lost Lewis, and then it was like, we're fucking dipping. Which you would do, I guess. Shout out Sam or whoever built the extension on this house, because it's legit. It's legitness.
What happened that night had been coming for a long time.
Yeah, this night I was talking about. So this is my bedroom. Maybe I have the coolest house. Little buddy. Yeah, very. It should have come a lot sooner. Fucking hell, excuse my language, but how tall does it go?
But it had to end one way or another. All that's left now is to tell you about that last night.
I'm not dead, surely. Or are we just going to relive this last night? I mean, it's the highest room, but I don't think it's the coolest. I mean, you're very secluded up here, but... So this is my room, and I haven't been in it since we left. Not sure on this open area. I've got all the same teddy bears as Molly, it looks like, or the shark, the rabbits, the octopi. Back in the bed. I didn't think we'd do us. I think we'd be doing our mother
The whole
Dawn.
last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
to our final night together, and all our final nights apart.
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
Yes, Mrs. Speak to me like I'm a fucking student. I'm your daughter. I've just lost my brother. Fuck that old bat as well. Nah. She enabled this. She knew there's a curse on
The power
the
had
family
been shut
aura.
off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles.
I mean, maybe it is a family curse. Maybe if we did move to India, we
When
still
my
would have
mom
died.
said the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance.
Fucking hell,
Or
there's
that
so many
Edie had a key to
entrances
it.
in these houses. She wanted us to see this, didn't she? BP library. It looked a lot smaller from the outside.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house.
Oh, so maybe Edie is right. Oh, fuck. Now I feel bad. Still fuck her though.
Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories!
Is it, yeah, like, is it a self-fulfilling prophecy? Or is it legit curse?
I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight.
I would, babe.
We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning. Okay?
Aw. She ain't gonna go. We all know that's not happening. Edie is dying in this house. Among Us! Among Us! Odin. So this is like Edie's little room.
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way out.
Didn't think it'd be going down this route. Are we gonna go see the house in the water? I think we are, aren't we? Yeah.
It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean.
What?
They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life.
You just got a boat out there, surely.
But I never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way.
We have low visibility. Oh, I cannot see.
I got turned around.
Bet you did. I can't see anything.
I started seeing things.
Deer! A lot of imagery with deers and finches, like the birds. Nice and tied in, isn't it?
Things I'd forgotten had ever existed.
Ed?
But when I saw them, they felt like old friends.
Aw.
That night, a lot of things came back to me. Or maybe I came back to them.
The old house. We don't actually know much about the house, other than what we saw in the Odin, whatever that camera thing is. He lost his wife, then he took Edie and Sven, excuse my voice. They took them on a boat with the house. We're going to find out a bit more about the original house. It's a bit of an enigma at the moment. We don't know a lot about it. Is this the
Things
actual
I
curse?
can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
Let me
It's
read
mine.
it!
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go!
Let go, you scat.
I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car.
Sorry. Bitch. So we never actually found out. But we're gonna find out now, aren't we?
I never saw Great Grandma Edie again.
It's the first time we've seen her. Oh, she's gonna
The
die.
next morning, the
there.
band came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot.
I've got a love-hate relationship for Edie. And we're still rocking these totally unfashionable
We both tried to make the best of it.
material fingerless scarf things, sleeves.
A few years
So
went
edgy.
by.
We're different.
My mom didn't like to talk about it. But she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly.
Oh, it wasn't the house, it is... Oh, God, man. Oh.
She got better for a while, and then she didn't.
Still rocking the sleeves. Sorry.
And then I was alone.
Fuck.
The last Finch left alive.
We don't know Edie could still be alive. And Milton.
Until I found out about you.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
we're
still
pregnant.
not sure what to tell you about all this.
You're gonna die. That's what I'd
If
say.
we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes
His family is cursed, no matter
and
what you do.
appreciate how strange and brief all of this is.
Am I coming out
This journal was supposed to be for you. But now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself.
I'd give her
I
up
guess
for
if you're reading
adoption
this now,
and never tell her anything.
things didn't work out that way.
Coming out of cervix!
This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
I'm a boy? It's a cool game, very unique. Well done to the team that made the game. Very cool. I hope they make other games. The end. Hi guys, this is Future Corey. I've had a day to really process the storyline and look into it a bit myself. I'm sure many of you have a few questions. I think that's what the developers were intending, sort of like everyone has their own interpretation of what happened. Game was amazing overall. Just the design of it, the idea, the pacing, everything. Such a cool, unique game. So just that in general got it a high rating. But the characters are really cool. And yeah, I've given it a 9.5 out of 10. I've really enjoyed that. I've never played a game like that. I'm sure many of you have never sort of seen a game like that. It was almost sort of on par to a movie or a book or something. It just shows that gaming can really reach those levels of entertainment. But yeah, the ending was a bit abrupt, and it did feel a little bit like we were waiting for this big reveal of who the bad guy was, or whatever the issue was, whether it was a curse or whether it was mental health issues, or that I just felt like something big was going to be like, whoa, and like it didn't really come. And I feel like that just sums up the game brilliantly. Like, there were so many turns and twists where you were like, I was not expecting that, and they really did leave you on a whole like, damn, like okay then. So but yeah, essentially you're playing, the majority of the game is Edith Jr. She's the one with the sleeves with patterns on. At the very start, you're playing as her soon-to-be son, coming back to the island with his broken wrist. You see it right at the start with the flowers. So he's reading this whole journal that we're going through is what Edith Jr. is writing as we're experiencing the game. It's pretty complicated, but essentially we don't actually play as the boy that much. We just see him at the start, and then we see him at the end dropping the flowers off to his mum's grave outside the house. But yeah, we mainly play as Edith Jr. She's coming back to find out why all her family members have died. I think she knows a bit about it because she did live up the top with her mum and her two brothers, but she probably doesn't exactly know all the details. And to be honest, I think she's a bit worried. She's just lost her mum from a disease, and she's pregnant now, so she's probably thinking, shit, like if there is a curse or there's something wrong, I need to find out. So yeah, cool way of telling it is literally storytelling in the form of like storytelling, if you get what I mean. Like, you're literally in the book, you were literally seeing the words and stuff. But yeah, there's so many theories. You can do your own research, you can have your own opinions. It would be good for me to hear other people's opinions. I like the sort of discussion for things like this you have afterwards. But my take was, I don't know, I feel like it wanted you to believe this fantasy element of some Finch curse, or I've seen theories of it being the old house. It was all the old house sort of taking souls, and you always see it watching over you, which are cool, but I feel like I much prefer the whole like realistic style of having a look at it and just thinking, these people were crazy. A lot of them had mental issues. I feel like a few of them had schizophrenia, I think is the actual mental issue. So they're seeing stuff, and their idea of their perception of reality and what is real and isn't is very blurred. And you can see that in Lewis, you can see that in Edie, you can also see that in Milton. I feel like we didn't hear a lot about him, but I'll speak about that in a bit. But yeah, I feel it more went down that route of how like this whole idea of like death coming to get them kind of played into the fact that like it caused their death sort of thing. And I don't think they were a special family. These were just, some of them accidents, some of them bad parenting, some of them trying to stop bad things happening ended up causing bad things to happen. So yeah, I think the main culprit of it all, after doing a bit of research, is Edie. She sort of enables it all. She like grandmama Edie, she's obsessed with this curse, and it sort of takes over the whole family and her life. Her first two children she loses are directly her fault and her husband's then. Yeah, Molly is just poor parenting. That's just neglect. There's nothing special. There's nothing, no house or curse or anything. She locked her daughter in a room without food, left her with, I think it was mistletoe, I've seen people say, which can be poisonous. And although I didn't eat it in the gameplay, I think the toothpaste as well can be quite dangerous. Yeah, that was solely her fault. There was nothing grand about that. But obviously, as a mum, how do you process that? Do you take responsibility, or do you put it back to your father's crappy stories about there being a curse? You're going to do that, aren't you? You're going to try and pass the blame, I guess. So she makes this whole thing in her head about it's the house, it's the Finch curse, and it trickles down throughout the whole family. I mean, Calvin, why would you build a swing on top of the house? Like, that's just bad parenting. And then on the flip side, the other bad parenting side is like Walter and Sam. They're so scarred from the things they've seen that Sam's willing to just try and protect his whole family. And and in doing so, he loses both his sons just by being a bad parent. And then he takes Dawn out to go hunting to teach her to be strong, and then he dies. So it's like a mixture of bad parenting and just mental issues and scarring. Like Walter, at any point Edie could have brought him up or tried to get him help, but she enabled him to stay under the house and fed him, like kept him there for years and years and years, didn't tell anyone. That's a bad, like, come on, that's bad parenting. Barbara's a little bit awkward, but I think the main thing with Barbara that stands out is that whoever wrote the cartoon, which I did pick up on, they knew way too much. And if you actually look, I know there's like people have done analysis of like the timing of like the years kids die, so they try and work out who was where. I think Edie is the only one who would have known any of that information. The main one being the key in the music box. It says in there like only Barbara knew that because I think Sven made it for her or something like that. The police wouldn't know that, and if they did when they were doing their investigations, they're not allowed, they can't sell that to anyone, they're not allowed to. So I feel like that was Edie, like in her own fucked up way, being like, oh, Barbara's a star and like I'm gonna sell it and everything, and she almost sees her children and grandchildren as like these pieces of art or like movies and stuff. She doesn't see them as people. And she is an artist, isn't she? She draws them, she makes murals of them, and it's kind of a bit sadistic when you think about it. Like, she loves their death, and it's like a painting in a house in these locked away rooms. Like the more analysis I did of it, I was like, fuck, like she is literally fucked. Like, there's a cemetery outside the house of all their dead relatives, and each tombstone has something like about their personality. It's just like, you wouldn't do that. Like, you've lost your daughter and your son, you move house, you don't keep their room intact and then put their diary on show for Molly. You put a really horrific comic book about your daughter getting murdered in her bedroom. It's like you make Sam write a poem for his twin brother Calvin and then make him stay in the room for 7 years. Like, that's gonna fuck him up. And it obviously did fuck Walter up. So all them children, that all of Edie's and Sven's children, are fucked. And that trickles down, doesn't it? Gus and Gregory are purely neglect. One from Sam and one from Kay, I think. And then Dawn is sort of mollycoddled, I feel like, and is like protected. And then she's so anal, she's so anti the house and this curse and stuff. She doesn't actually show Edith, Milton or Lewis anything. They're not allowed to know anything. They sort of said they were aware, but they weren't quite sure. And Edie's alive this whole time, like she's still there. Like, this is a 90-something-year-old woman hanging on. Yeah, it's mad. The thing with Milton, I feel like you can do your own research. From what I found, it's linked to a previous game the developer's done, which is all based on like this 2D art form, which is exactly what you see in like Milton's little castle. And that game, something of the Black Swan or something. Essentially, a boy's lost his mum, she's a painter, and then to deal with it, he like jumps in a painting, and he meets this king, who everyone's saying is Milton. It's the same design as this. He's got like the hair, the big nose, but he's got a moustache. And I think that hints at that was Milton's sort of schizophrenic. He created a world a bit like Lewis did. Both of them had issues with dealing with reality. And I think the idea is that when he went missing and opened that metaphorical door, he's like gone. He can't tell the difference between reality and this made up art world that he's made, whatever the Black Swan game was. So he's probably just walked off thinking he's a king, and he's probably died somewhere. So essentially killed himself. Same with Lewis. Also on Milton, there was a big, there was like this big hint as you came out of his little castle that he saw something and Edie found out or something like that, and they literally never brought it up again. I was like intending to find the big secret, and we didn't find it. And on like doing a bit more analysis on his whole like black swan, whatever the thing was, and all that stuff, there was like throughout the tunnels in the house, I think Edith did point out once, it was like a left turn or something. I think it was like in the pink room bathroom, if you watch that episode. You can see Milton's been drawing, and she was like, oh, Milton clearly found it before me or whatever. Milton had already seen like all the books and stuff in the dead relatives' rooms. That's what he found out. Like, he'd obviously snuck into the house from the top bit, found the secret rooms, and was doing what we were doing and using all the passageways, and you can see all his artwork apparently over all the tunnels and stuff. So he clearly found out that all his relatives were dying and there was a curse and everything, was probably freaking out, probably told Edie, and she was probably calming him down, and that's when he just disassociated and just completely went into madness, wrote this completely made up art world or whatever his 2D world was, and disappeared. Yeah, kind of mad. Like, it's just like little things like that you just don't pick up in the game. Like, I remember hearing her say like, oh, Milton must have been here before me because that's his drawing, or she said something like that. And then it's not till you realise that it was in every tunnel, so he'd literally discovered everything as well. So maybe he wasn't, I don't know, like maybe he wasn't mad, maybe he was murdered by Edith. I don't know, there's so many like, oh, I don't think he was murdered, but yeah, like Edie's directly, like you can link her back to like every death by being responsible in some way, through neglect, bad parenting, forcing these stories down the kids' throats. Like her room, I didn't realise, sorry I keep rambling, but there's so much, her room, there's so much information that I didn't pick up on at the time. Like you can go back and play, and there's like the thing about the like, why would you have that in your room? Like, your son is under your house. Why would you like glorify your son being scared to like it's weird. She sold that to the newspapers. There's a mole man living in a house. Same with Sven. He died building a dinosaur slide or a dragon slide for his kids. Like the posters on the wall, like she's like, my husband died of like, got killed by a dragon, and she's like that's her bedroom. Like she's in there with all this shit, like trying to, she's just obsessed with this curse. I think she lives it, and it's her way of sort of dealing with the stress by just being a loony bag. And she sees all these kids and husbands and everything as like, I guess, paintings, like a dramatized version of probably what were quite distressing, and not as nearly as fun as it was playing. The deaths probably weren't, like the baby's death, like that was fucked. Like it was a really fun moment, but it didn't go down like that. Like it's I feel like it is all a needy, and the grand sort of scheme of it, which I didn't pick up, but I did mention in one of the first episodes, is the books. Like the house was swamped in books, like ridiculous. Even if you like books, that's a ridiculous amount of books, and it is all about just the stories that Edie tells and how it just fucks up the kids and how they're all scared and how they all believe all these books like a fictional world. All comes down to her. So that's what I think. It's a lot of bad parenting, a lot of things trying to stop things, and then they do happen. And on my final point, sorry, I don't want this to be long, but Edith, I thought she died in childbirth, and a lot of people do believe that, but if you actually pay attention to some of the words she says, as she's like narrating to her son, because there's elements where she talks about the house, and there's elements she's talking to someone. One of her last words is something like, "I'm sorry I won't be here to tell you all this," or there's another bit where she's like, "I don't know if I should be writing all this." Like, there's a theory that she knows she's gonna die. Like she can't expect to die in childbirth. Like she was planning to die, and people were saying that she killed herself because she was so worried that her boy would see all this and have the curse still. So she was like, fuck it, I'm gonna give birth to him put them up for adoption, and then kill myself. And she's already pre-written this book, so that's like even more fucked up, that she was like, Edie had got into her head so much that she was worried about her future son. She's gone back to the house, seen this stuff, and was like, I'm going to write him a book, I'm going to tell him everything, what happened to his mum, like what remains of Edith Finch, and end it all. So all of Dawn's kids have killed themselves, and she was the one that was trying to protect him the most. There's also quite a sort of, not throwaway comment, but Edith Jr., as you're walking, the sort of the slow episode where you're walking around the cemetery and stuff, and there wasn't any big reveals, she makes a comment that she was more scarred by the pet cemetery, that made her feel more unsettled. And it's like a throwaway sentence that someone picked up on that I saw, was like, 2 of the 3 gerbils or guinea pigs were her fault for their death. And like, when you look back at all the parents, like 2 of every children like that they've had are directly the parents' fault. So is that like Edith Jr. foreshadowing, like, if I have kids, just like my pets, 2 of them are going to go? Because like Molly and Calvin are obviously Edith and Sven's fault. Gus and Gregory are obviously Sam and Kay's fault. And then I'm guessing Milton and Lewis are obviously Dawn's fault, because she didn't get them the care they need and didn't tell them everything. So yeah, that was like a throwaway comment that they obviously, that had a deeper meaning at the time, but you just were just like, oh, 2 gerbils died, they were my fault. That was quite a poignant point, and that probably led also to her sort of, I can't have any more children, I don't want to put this on my son or whatever, or my future baby. And she took her life. Or she didn't, she died in childbirth, we don't know, but, and it's just, like, so there's so much more. But I suggest if you enjoyed it, you should look into a few videos, or I've done a few like Reddit pages, there's so many different takes on it. But yeah, Edie, you old bat. But yeah, that was a good first playthrough. I really enjoyed that. Hopefully I'm going to do a few more games like that. Yeah, let me know if there's any games you want to see. Let me know what you think personally, whether you thought it was the old house and the curse was the old house, whether you thought that is actually a Finch curse, like whether you think it's Edie, whether you think it's schizophrenia and it was more about mental issues, that each of them had mental issues, whether you think it's bad parenting, like a mixture, like I do. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll see you in the next vid. Peace out. God, I'm so gassed. I just want to chat forever. Goodbye.